I'm here today to discuss an important initiative that Alberta's government is undertaking to ensure that materials in our school libraries, particularly those with graphic sexual content, are developmentally appropriate. And I want to be clear right from the onset, this is not a question of banning specific books or specific titles.
Yes, it is. If it weren't, you wouldn't have provided reporters with a list of books flagged for review. And among those books, Gender Queer by Maya Kababe, an award-winning graphic memoir about growing up non-binary and asexual. Fun Home by Alison Bechdel, a Pulitzer Prize finalist and the basis for a Tony Award-winning musical. This memoir explores family, sexuality, and grief with unflinching honesty. Flamer by Mike Curato, a coming-of-age story about a queer Filipino-American teen grappling with identity and isolation at summer camp. Blankets by Craig Thompson, a deeply personal memoir about first love and religious guilt. Not explicitly queer, but it challenges religious indoctrination and is considered a landmark in graphic literature. These books aren't fringe. They're award-winning, teacher-recommended, and recognized for their literary value. More importantly, they give voice to students exploring gender, sexuality, and mental health. They're not porn, they're honest. They challenge norms, and that's why they're being targeted. The government claims it's focusing on sexual content, not orientation, but the double standard is obvious. Books with straight relationships, violence, and disturbing themes aren't scrutinized. Sweet Valley High features teen drinking, sex, and abusive relationships, yet none of its books have been flagged. Christopher Pike's young adult horror includes graphic violence, murder, and rape. Goosebumps doesn't explore sexuality, but it's loaded with psychological and physical horror, including murder. Personally, I don't see anything wrong with any of these books. I read most of them growing up and turned out fine. The problem is they get a free pass for reinforcing traditional norms. Straight relationships? No problem. Graphic violence? Barely a blink. But stories about queer identity, emotional vulnerability, and sexual confusion? Suddenly it's a crisis. Why is teen violence acceptable but queer self-discovery isn't? Terms like age-appropriateness and sexually explicit are constantly thrown around, but they're intentionally vague. The categorizations are broad enough to literally ban any book that makes certain adults uncomfortable. It's a tactic lifted straight from the United States of America, where over 4,000 books have been banned in the past 2 years alone. More than 40% of those banned books feature LGBTQ+ characters or themes. The others cover racial injustice, diversity, inclusion, and equity, or women's reproductive rights. Is that really the path we want Canada to follow? The government has launched a public survey asking Albertans what belongs in school libraries. But let's be honest, this isn't real engagement. It's a smokescreen. If the government really cared about meaningful input, it would start by listening to teachers, librarians, and students, the people who actually work with these books every day. Instead, they're opening the door to the loudest, most hateful voices in our province. Not educators or psychologists or even medical doctors for that matter, but people like Riggy McCrude from Bacon Ridge, who's never met a queer person he didn't immediately want to drag behind his F-350. They're taking cues from KK Karen Von Queef in Holy Cross, who tells her kids that all gay people are groomers and will burn in hell. They're turning to Tex Drillerson from Conjuring Creek, who spends Saturday nights abusing his daughter while his wife's at book club. And while these are all hypotheticals, the fact remains that most Albertans are not trained to evaluate school books. That's not an insult. That's just a fact. Teachers and librarians spend years learning how to assess content for age, development, and literary value. Online surveys don't replace that. This isn't democratic input, it's manufactured outrage, giving power to people who think books can turn kids gay and view diversity as dangerous. Minister Nicolaides insists this is not censorship. But in 2025, this is exactly how censorship works, not with book burnings, but with polite language, surveys, and red tape. The result is the same either way. Marginalized voices are pushed out of public spaces. This isn't about explicit content. It's about controlling the narrative. It's about enforcing cultural dominance under the banner of family values. But queer kids don't disappear just because you remove the books that reflect their lives. It's the same tired playbook that's been around for decades. The same rhetoric that attacked gay-straight alliances, policies implemented by the same people who mock pronouns and clutch their pearls every time a gay student wants to bring their boyfriend to prom. It's the same thinking behind opposing sex ed, because if kids know about it, then clearly they're going to do it, right? Odd that we don't apply the same logic to other types of literature, like, oh, I don't know, murder? Let's be clear. Queer kids and teens are going to experiment with their sexuality, the same way straight ones have always done. And FYI, straight kids have never needed books to show them how. They learn about it the old-fashioned way, in hallways, online, through friends. Sadly, queer kids don't have that option. So the real question is, how do you want them to learn? In the chaos of the internet? In the dark, seedy corners of the web where pedophiles lurk? Or through thoughtful, award-winning books that handle the topics with honesty and care? You don't protect kids by pretending reality doesn't exist. You protect them by giving them the tools to navigate it, and that includes literature.